If your small group's ministry disappeared tomorrow, would your church truly be less discipled? Let's talk about that on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and A.J. Mathieu.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, A.J. Mathieu.
Ready to go.
A.J., I missed you last week.
I hate being gone, but thank you for picking up the load there, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe no one, maybe people don't like it. I don't know.
Or they didn't even notice. That was the opener. If AJ wasn't on the podcast, would anyone even notice?
Yeah, I think they noticed. I had to look at my ugly mug the whole episode if they were watching on YouTube. So
speaking of that, like and subscribe over on YouTube. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, that's true. We would go ahead and like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Okay. So today we're talking about small groups. And before we do that, though, I wanted to remind you about tapconnect.church. You remember about tapconnect.church?
I remember. I hope everybody else remembers because it's a great piece of tech, I think, that will improve your church.
Yeah. I mean, here we're going to be talking about small groups and how we really want to kind of move people into deeper discipleship. Well, that kind of starts with knowing who is at your church, who's coming regularly, who's engaged, who's new, and tapconnect.church helps you with all of that. So it's these little stickers you can stick on the back of chairs, and you can use that to not only get information from guests, but also track attendance from week to week. The great thing is, after you filled out the form the first time, you don't have to do that again. So, and every week when people tap, they don't have to fill out the form again. It's going to take them right to the landing page that you set up. So that could be your bulletin for the week, or that could be something else. But sort of the connect card portion of it, you only ever have to do that one time, which again is another incentive to get people to connect, to tap. It's like, hey, if you want to check today's bulletin, tap, or if you want to follow today's sermon notes, tap. Now you're kind of incentivizing even the guests and the people who are reticent. Not just like, hey, if you're new, why don't you tap that? People are going to be like, I don't know. Give people a reason to tap every week, and give a reason to kind of get those guests to tap. So tapconnect.church, check it out. TMG10, TMG10 saves you 10% at checkout on any plan. Tapconnect.church. And also briefly, the Healthy Churches Toolkit. Want to encourage you to check that out. 7 days free if you go to healthychurchestoolkit.com. Brand new version up there. Don't call it a 2.0, but it's a 2.0. Healthy Churches
Significant improvements in the toolkit.
Yeah. AJ was like, we can't call it 2.0.
No, I don't want no 2.0s.
You don't. Yeah, you're like anti 2.0.
Yeah, no, we don't need versions. We don't need no versioning.
But if there was a version, this would be that. It's a completely different. It's a whole new, overhauled deal.
Internally, 2.0. We won't tell anybody that.
Okay, yeah, just the people who are listening to this podcast. So if it's been a while since you checked out, or maybe you checked it out in the past and you're like, it's not for me. There's not this thing. It doesn't do this. It might do that thing. It may have that thing. So you should go. healthychurchestoolkit.com. Sign up. Okay, let's get into it.
All right. Yep. Good information makes for good leadership decisions. And you should be thinking about that in light of your small groups. We need to be thinking about small groups as a tool in the church for discipleship, not just something that every other church does. We talk a lot about intentionality, Scott, in strategic envisioning and leadership pipeline. And small groups can be, and in most churches are, a key ministry, but they're not always leveraged to what they should be or could be. And so, let's start, Scott, talking about kind of an issue in small groups, and that is that they are sometimes just a participation trap. Like, we know we're supposed to be doing something, and so let's just make sure people are doing it. And it's kind of left just with that. usually at the beginning of a small groups ministry launch, there's amazingly wonderful intentions. Whether that plays out even at launch or over time is the question. So people or church leaders often just assume, well, if we can just get people into groups, then that's good. I mean, we're moving the needle forward on discipleship, but
Yes.
that doesn't always play out.
Right. Yes. So the trap is the assumption that just because someone isn't in a group or they're in a Sunday school class, that they are being discipled.
Yeah.
And that's not always true. So there's a difference between biblical fellowship. I make this joke with basically every church I work with, so I'm sorry for all of you who are listening who've heard this. And for those of you who work with me in the future, you will also hear it. Sometimes we think that fellowship is just the equivalent for food. When you hear fellowship, we think food. And food's a component of it, no doubt. But biblical fellowship is so much more than that. It's so much deeper than that. And that's missing in a lot of our groups. Biblical instruction, being devoted to Christ's teaching. You going around the circle and be like, what does this passage mean to you? I'm not saying that that's, I am actually, I'm going to say that is bad. Like that's a, don't ever ask that question. Cause that's actually the worst possible question you could ever ask in a small group, because it should mean what it means. Shouldn't mean something to you. If what you intend to say is, how are you applying this scripture in your life? That's a better question and one you can ask. But what does it mean to you is a terrible question. So just a side note, never ask that.
You've been needing to get that off your chest. I'm glad you had the opportunity to do that.
What does that mean to you?
It
means what it means. Like it means what it means, but I can apply it. I can apply it uniquely in my life. So I probably offended a bunch of people. I don't really care. So the trap is thinking we're doing discipleship because we have people in groups. And part of the challenge can be that we think, I don't know how to say this, that if only we could get more people in groups, then there would be more discipleship. And there's an element of truth to that. Certainly it's better than them only being there on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
But if the group quality isn't there, if the things that should be happening in groups isn't happening in groups, then it's actually not substantively better than if they were only coming on Sunday morning.
Yeah, you went from a 0 to a 2, but in your mind, you think you're at an 8.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's the trap. The trap is going, if we just get people to show up in groups, then discipleship is going to happen. And that's not necessarily true.
It's possible that your small groups ministry is the most dangerous ministry in your church because you think that discipleship is happening, but it's actually not.
That's absolutely right. That's really well said.
Well, thank you. You can tweet that.
I'll clip that. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about what is usually missing, or maybe what a more ideal small group could look like. One, with intentionality. All right. I'm going to keep saying the word intentionality because I believe in it. That's what we're all about. So we've got to consider, all right, what should we be doing? Well, let's even back up from that, Scott. I mean, what should our church be accomplishing across its ministries? And we would, and always do, direct people back into Acts chapter 2. And if you want to hone in on verses 41 through 47, we've got a snapshot of a healthy church, of what a church, I think, should look like still today. And really, we need to engineer that, which is what a discipleship pathway should do for you. But so if you haven't looked at Acts 2 in those verses in a little while, we're talking about worship and prayer and fellowship and Bible instruction and living out service and generosity to one another. Did I say evangelism? That's an important one. And And so this is what our ministries working together should accomplish. We should be able to create this environment in which people are encouraged to engage and be able to live out all of these things. So the first issue that we have in our small groups ministry is that we've not decided, like, what is the segment that they're supposed to be accomplishing in discipleship. There's no clear outcome built in on the front end. And because, again, it's such a, there's a lot of things in the church. Like, I think church leaders are like, hey, we ought to have a mission statement because we should. We should have core values because we should. We should have small groups just, because that's a good thing.
Right.
Without really, really dissecting it and getting into what that means. So,
and what do those things do?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's not just content to have on your website. It's, they play a role. They execute a function. And so, I mean, defining on the front end, what are, to your point, what is a disciple? How does this connect to our values? And then the next logical step is, okay, what role do small groups play in cultivating these aspects of discipleship? Which aspects of discipleship is it supposed to be doing? And then evaluating, does it actually do that? So kind of going back to what we were just saying with the trap, it's like, okay, well, this is supposed to be a place that creates fellowship would be one thing. Mm-hmm. Does it actually do that? When we look at our groups, do we see something other than just they get together and eat? Are we seeing actual biblical instruction? And I'm not saying sermons, because it's a different kind of biblical instruction in the group setting than on a Sunday morning. But it's still biblical instruction, and it should definitely be something other than, what does this passage mean to you? That's the worst kind, as I've already established. Prayer. Are we actually praying for people? Or is it just, the women who are in the group gossip about what's going on in other people's lives and call it a prayer request?
Ouch. Not that women are the only gossipers, Scott, but boy.
Yeah, or the men. It's less likely to be the men. But I don't know I'm sorry, my filter is gone, apparently. And not because men can't be gossips, it's because they're not paying attention enough.
Generally don't care.
Yeah, they're like, I don't care. I don't know. Yeah. They're more likely to say, or please don't be the person who's like, unspoken. A small group should be a place where you shouldn't have to have an unspoken prayer request, right? Like, if you've got real biblical fellowship going on here where I actually trust people, it shouldn't have to be unspoken. I can say it. Oh, you're dealing with this, your marriage is falling apart. You should be able to say that thing. Hey, I got this terrible diagnosis. You should be able to say that thing. Usually, that's a cry for help. When someone says unspoken, they're saying, please, someone care about me enough to ask me what's really going on in my life. So, okay, sorry. All right, I'm going to stop talking now.
Yeah, I'm glad you're getting a few things off your chest today. I've been traveling a lot. We haven't spoken very much. You need somebody to talk to. I'm glad we're back together today.
That's right. That's true. We've both been so busy that, I do have this little outlet where I can rant about things to AJ once or twice a week. I've got like 30 minutes worth of ranting I got to get off my chest. And it's true. I haven't had that.
All right. So a few things we're trying to get to here in small groups that they might be missing. There's no clear outcome that is predefined on the front end.
Yeah.
The second thing is that there's no accountability structure, which, should be happening within, again, service we can provide for your church.
I wasn't exactly saying it that way, but that's kind of what I was getting at. Is like, you should have real life on life interaction going on.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. But even beyond that, I mean, most small groups ministry is going to lack accountability, even from the small group leader up to a small group coordinator or to a ministry, director or pastor in the church. to know, like what's happening in your group, and how are things going? How can we help you be a better leader? So that should be a two-way street happening of communication and support and training, and coaching. And then there's also no connection to the broader pathway. So as with, many, many churches, any particular ministry is just kind of out there surviving on its own. And we need leaders at higher levels in the church seeing all of these things fitting together like puzzle pieces to, create this discipleship picture.
Yeah.
And so the groups can it's like set it and forget it, spin them off. We hope they'll grow. We hope, eventually we'll have more groups than we have now. And we're not really looking at that like, okay, we are depending on small groups to accomplish some discipleship goals because we're depending on other ministries over here to accomplish other discipleship goals. And when we put all these things together, then we've got this beautiful picture of a healthy church and growing disciples in their faith, people becoming disciple makers, and, all the awesome stuff that Jesus envisioned for his church. Instead of like, hey, can we have a place for people to spend time? Can we add something to somebody's calendar and maybe they can make a friend? I mean, okay, how about we go a little bit deeper than that? How about we really get intentional about what we're doing as a church and not just be a social environment? There's a little bit of AJ rant for you, Scott.
Yeah, there you
How
go.
about that?
Yeah. So here's the thing. It's got to have that connection to the broader discipleship pathway. It has to have accountability. It has to have a clear outcome. And, a small group without a discipleship outcome is just a dinner party with a devotional. And, it's really important that it have a point and that you as a leader are holding accountable the ministry itself as a whole to that outcome, to that discipleship outcome.
Some churches out there right now going, our dinner and Devo groups are so awesome.
It should be more than that. It should be more than that. Okay, so then what should it be? If we're saying this is what's missing, what should it look like, AJ?
Kind of filling in the three blanks that we just laid out for you that are missing. So first of all, defining your discipleship target first. So go into the scripture, go look at Acts chapter 2. What of these things would a small group be uniquely designed for to accomplish? I mean, I can tell you commonly some of the things that a small group environment could be great at is true biblical fellowship, as Scott has kind of identified there. I mean, have we really gotten to know each other to the point where we can depend on one another? We used to say this more often, maybe you still do, Scott, when you're talking, but we used to talk about like those 3 a.m. friends, the middle of the night, need call that needs to go out. Who would you call? When there's a crisis in your family, it was a car accident, there was some, an illness. Who comes to mind that you would call? I mean, probably a family member. Is there anybody outside of that? I mean, is there somebody from church besides knowing, I know my pastor would care about this.
Right.
So yeah, who is that? So that true biblical fellowship, we could accomplish some amazingly deep Bible study in the small group environment. I mean, that's a great place for that to happen beyond what does this passage mean to you? But yeah, how about we take our pastor's sermon and we really, all of those details perhaps that ended up, in the editing pile to make sure that it hit the 25-minute mark on Sunday. There's a lot more there. There's a lot more there that we could talk about. We can be praying for one another in a way that we're not going to be able to pray on a Sunday, right? We got 250 people in the sanctuary. We're not covering everybody's prayer needs there, but we sure can in that small group environment. So at a minimum, these things right here, if they were really functioning at a deep discipling fellowship level, would be pretty significant. So define your target, shoot for that.
Yeah.
And then have some systems in place. Well, I would get into the next piece, Scott.
Yeah. So the second piece then is give group leaders a framework and not just a curriculum. I think sometimes we think that we've done what we need to do, but just because we've given them some curriculum. And I like what you're saying with retooling or reusing some of the content from the sermon as for study guides. And in fact, we have things inside the Healthy Churches Toolkit to help you do that more quickly. But not only that, I mean, just giving them that's not enough. You have to give them a way of thinking about leading a group. And I guess my goal today is to offend people, I guess. But I mean, I think sometimes we go, look, we're good. We've got a Right Now media subscription. What more do these small group leaders need from us? They can go in there, just pick the thing that you want to do.
Well, I think a lot of times,
Just press
leaders,
play.
pastors are like, we trust Right Now media, therefore it doesn't matter what they pick, we know it'll be fine.
But even beyond that, like even if you could trust everything on Right Now media, which I don't know that you can, but even if you could, being a small group leader is more than just the person who presses play and asks the questions. There should be more training involved than that. If the discipleship outcome isn't gather people together to watch content, which I think is what a lot of small groups are. So that's kind of what we were covering before. So you got to give people a framework. You have to give people training on how to be these sort of mini shepherds. Actually, I think the thing that they don't need to be is an excellent Bible teacher. I think the barrier for a lot of small group leaders or a lot of people wanting to become a small group leader is they think I have to become an excellent Bible teacher in order to be an effective small group leader. And that's actually not true. The content piece is the easiest piece to resolve. Whether you're using Right Now media or you're using the group curriculum stuff built into the Healthy Churches Toolkit or whatever, like the content piece is the easiest thing to solve, and you don't have to be an expert in that. It's being a shepherd, a sort of an under shepherd of caring for the group and giving them a framework for that. You have to create expectation and go, this is what we want to have happen in every single group. We want to see people engage in the scripture this way. We want to see prayer happen this way. We want to see fellowship happening this way, and then teach them how to do that. And we do have a course inside the Healthy Churches Toolkit right now on small groups, on building healthy small groups, put together by Adam Ehrlichman and the folks at Build Groups. It's in there now, and it's going to be in there for at least the next 3 months. So you really should go to healthychurchestoolkit.com. If nothing else, sign up and watch that material, because they've got incredibly good training in there on how to raise up really good small group leaders and how to coach them and teach them to be effective small group leaders. So please do go check that out. But you have to give them a framework for operating and not just tell them, here's the curriculum you need to use.
Yeah. And then finally, you need to keep the big view picture of the groups being a piece of your discipleship pathway, not your entire discipleship strategy. And maybe we need to realign what this term discipleship even means, because it's confusing. I think everybody's got their own definition of what does discipleship actually mean. The entire church should be a discipleship environment, and the small groups ministry is a piece of it that can accomplish some specific things that we've already talked about. So we have to keep this big picture view. Scott, you've probably heard this too. I go to churches and they brag that, we've got people in small groups who don't even go to church here. I'm like, why not? Why don't they go to church here? I mean, maybe they go to another church. Maybe they don't go.
Unless that's by design. Like, actually, I was just with a church recently that's their entry point, is they want people to start there.
Well, I was going to say, I think a small group is a great entry point for even any church, but it shouldn't be where somebody lands and stays permanently.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. I think that's a statement. It's a statement that they think is really good,
Right.
without thinking, should this be a permanent thing, or should our small group leaders understand that they're a piece in a bigger discipleship puzzle? And no, like are my people, are they attending worship? If they're not, why not? Are they serving somewhere in the church? If not, why not? Are all my people, able to and using opportunities to share their faith when they can.
Yep.
Why not? So this, a small group leader, I mean, it's a significant place to serve in the church.
Yep.
It's something that I think many people can be equipped for without, they don't need to go to seminary. You can raise people up into great leaders, but they should understand where they fit in the bigger thing, and leadership above them needs to understand what the tool of discipleship that a small group is, and make sure that it all fits together.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really well said. I think as we wrap up today, want to just encourage you to pick one group to audit and go, or one ministry. I mean, maybe we didn't even get into this, AJ, but it may be that your church has small groups and you've got like women's groups and men's groups and you've got Sunday school classes and they all function differently. That's a whole nother episode. Because then you're maybe causing some confusion. I mean, we often talk. God, this is a whole side point. But I guess I'll say this: you really should have just one of these things that you would say you want everyone to engage in. So they don't need to be in a small group and a Sunday school class and a men's group. They just need to pick one thing that you would expect everyone to be engaged in, and then these other things are secondary or they're supplemental in some way. So maybe even just start there and go, okay, what's the one thing that we'd say we want everyone to engage in, and then audit that and go, how effective go through the things we've talked about. Does it have clear discipleship outcomes? Do they have a framework for operating, or are we just giving them curriculum? Is it clear to people that this is the one thing that we would expect them to engage in this step in our discipleship pathway? Or maybe even the bigger question, do we have a discipleship pathway? Like, all of these are really good questions. So my encouragement is maybe just start there. Lots of times pastors they don't have concrete answers. They just got stuff they're doing, plates they're spinning, and it's just not that effective. So take a step back and evaluate. Maybe one last point I would make is, I think this is a leader's job. Like, your job is not just to run the things, it's to think about how the things are running.
Yeah.
And if you don't have time in your day-to-day week, or at least sometime in a month, to kind of step back and evaluate and go, what's working, what's not working, then we need to reorient the schedule a little bit, and create just a couple of hours even to disconnect from the operational side and just think about this from a leadership side. So maybe start there.
That's a good encouragement. Thanks for being with us this week on the Church Revitalization Podcast. We're glad you joined us. And be sure to, if you're on YouTube, we've got a lot of links down below in the description to direct you to resources that we have to offer and our partners. So thanks for being with us, everybody. We'll see you again next week.